What's going on, everybody? This is Josh from Locked Off Road Shocks. Today we're going to show you how to install our OEM 2.5 with Resi Kit onto your third gen Tacoma. The same rules that apply to the third gen Tacoma will also apply to the second gen Tacoma. We'll go over everything you guys need to know to get this kit installed the right way the first time. Now, I will state that if you are doing this kit, you do need aftermarket upper control arms. Whether that's Dirt King, SPC, JBA Offroad, all really good options. You will need an aftermarket upper control arm because when these shocks cycle all the way down, they do add about 25% down travel over stock, so that factory upper control arm would make contact with the larger shock diameter. Let's get this install going and show you guys how it's done. So starting with the rear of your third gen or second gen Tacoma, you're gonna have a 17 mil up top on the top of the shock and then a 17 mil bolt on the bottom. These are aftermarket, as you guys can see. These are Dobinson, so these did have a Resi mounted to the frame here. We're gonna clean this up, hit it with a little coat of Steel It, make it look nice and new. And then when you put the lock shocks in, we'll show you that process. That's gonna be a 19 mil top nut and then use the factory OEM 17 mil bolt in the bottom. You have your old shock out, you're gonna put your new lock shock in. The bottom of the rear shock is gonna look like this. So washer, bushing, washer. You're gonna slide it on through. And then you're gonna have this washer with the cone on the bottom. That's gonna go on next, sit inside the hole. And then same thing, bushing, washer on top, and this orientation here. And then your 19 mil top nut will go to hold it all together. If for some reason you guys can't get this thread to catch, it means that this shock is not pushed up high enough. So if you're doing this on the ground, you can get a floor jack, put the lower bolts into the shock here, use a floor jack to push up, and that'll push the axle to help squish these rubber bushings to get you more threads to get that nut to catch. So now you can see Tony has a lot more threads for that 19 mil nut to actually grab onto and get started, just like that. When you guys are torquing down your lower shock bolt on the rear, factory spec is 43 foot-pounds. We're gonna do 50 just for an extra half a ugga-dugga. Now that both rear shocks are in, we're gonna show you guys how to mount your Resi with your adjuster. So this little adjuster is gonna give you the ability to fine-tune how you want your shock to ride. Now with the rear end of a Tacoma, if this doesn't feel stiff enough or it's too soft, it's probably not the shock, it's probably gonna be your leaf pack. So if you guys are running a factory leaf pack and you're hoping that this is gonna carry the weight, that's not how these shocks work, or any shock on the market works for a rear end of a Tacoma. That is going to be your leaf pack. Think of your leaf pack as your front coilover spring. This is what carries the weight. This is what dampens and controls everything. You guys don't have to do this step, but one thing that we recommend and we like to do is we like to put black heat shrink on the hose clamps. Just prevents anything being metal on metal against the Resi or the bracket, gives it a little coating and makes it look a lot better. So you'll take your heat shrink and put it on the hose clamp just like so. And if you have to cut a little bit more, don't worry about it. And the clamp will still bite and tighten just like it would before. Now that you've got your hose clamps heat shrunk, you're gonna figure out a rough idea of where you want to mount your Resi with the adjusters. So you'll take the black mount like this, put the holes facing towards the ground, and these will be for your hose clamps here. Get a rough idea of where you want that Resi, and then go ahead and hit it with the self-tappers to put them into the frame. These self-tapper screws are gonna be a bolt head essentially, so it's a 3/8 and just leathery. And now your Resi mount is mounted. This is how your hose clamp will mount to the Resi mount. So it's gonna basically sit in this little groove. So all you guys have to do is slide it on the back side like so. It'll sit inside this groove on the mount like that. You're able to put your Resi inside of here like that, and then still in that groove, you'll tighten this down and it'll hold your Resi where you want it. Now go ahead and cinch down your hose clamps to hold your Resi, and this side will be all done. Another optional piece for you guys is you can trim the excess of the hose clamp, completely up to you, but we like a clean install, so we're gonna trim it. And that looks absolutely perfect. Now that we are working on the front, again, aftermarket shocks, we're gonna remove the Resi first. If you guys are a factory truck, you're gonna not have a Resi, but you will have a 19mm bolt going to the lower control arm here, or nut. Going to remove that 19mm, and then we'll show you what to do next. There's a few options and ways to remove a front shock on these trucks. We're gonna show you the way that we like to do it. So where Tony is removing these bolts here, what size are they? 14 mil. This is where a factory sway bar would be. Now you guys have the option of either keeping that sway bar or removing it. I personally remove the sway bar because the sway bar is going to limit your down travel and your articulation while you are out wheeling. Now, if you take the sway bar out and you feel like you're getting too much body roll, you can throw the sway bar back in. I haven't run a sway bar in my Tacoma in years, and this truck also took the sway bar out when putting the Dobinson kit in. It's up to you. People have different preferences. Do what you feel is best for you. Now these are SPC cam bolts. We highly recommend you guys do these if you're gonna be replacing lower control arms or really getting any sort of alignments. These are nice because they do not seize like the factory cam bolts do, but we're gonna go ahead and loosen these up to give this control arm some movement, and then we will remove these lower knuckle bolts underneath to get the control arm to drop out of our way. Your lower knuckle bolts will be a 19mm. Once you have your cam bolts loose and the lower shock bolt undone, you can take out these 19s and your lower control arm will drop like so. You have the top 3 bolts still holding the shock in. We'll go ahead and remove these 3 bolts up top, and this shock will come on out. The back 14 is going to be the hardest one to get. What you guys can do is put one of the nuts back on the front side. That way you can get that back one off all the way, so that way when that one comes off, it doesn't just drop the whole strut. Looks like Tony got the back one out, so now what he can do is put one hand on the lower shock body, one hand on the nut above, and then once those are all off, he'll be able to work this through. You guys won't have the Resi to deal with, most likely, but if you do, just feed it through. Just like so. Once you get your new shock in, there should be a bag that's vacuum sealed essentially with all the hardware that you're going to need for this install. Get these silver bolts. There should be 6 of them in a section of the bag. Put a lock washer on it. You guys can put blue Loctite if you want. That's completely up to you. Now with these billet mounts, you're going to put these where your sway bar would go, like so. And then your Resi mount will bolt into the side of this. Why did I say it like that? And then your Resi mount will bolt into the side of this billet bracket. So if you are running a bumper with a frame support or anything like that, these shocks will still work with them. When you're ready to put this into the frame of the truck, you'll use these black bolts, the big Allen head on them. If you guys decide you want to keep your sway bar, you're going to use these 2 inner smaller holes, and there will be hardware in your baggie for that as well. When you put on this plate, again, it's an 8mm Allen. but you want the smaller holes going towards the front of the truck. So the other bracket, if you put it on this side, these holes would be back here. We want them forward, as far forward as we can get them. Once you guys have your billet bracket mounted, this is where your Resi mount is going to mount up like this. You can see, since we are doing aftermarket with aftermarket, the only change we're going to have to make is notch this frame support right here, and that'll give us clearance for our Resi mount to go on. But we do keep the frame support, and we use what Locked provides for the Resi mount. There you guys have it. Both the holes on this Resi bracket now line up with our billet lower piece. All Tony had to do was notch this out, grind this down just a little bit. Again, we are doing aftermarket with aftermarket, and that is very, very minor to have to do to make this fit. So with this kit, you do have the option, and I keep the option, to either run your sway bar or still be able to mount the Resi, even if you have an aftermarket bumper with the frame supports. A lot of the times when you start mixing aftermarket with aftermarket, things don't like to play nice together. But luckily, since we actually use these trucks and have a bunch of aftermarket with aftermarket, we think of little things like this to help make your guys' install a little bit easier. Now that your Resi bracket is ready to go on, you're gonna get these little bolts that are gonna be a 4mm Allen. This might be common sense, but when you tighten this down, make sure you have clearance between the bracket and your upper control arm. If you can fit a finger in there, you're good. This arm is not going to move that way or this way, neither is that if it's in there tight. It's like the rear with the hose clamps going to the reservoir. We're going to do the same thing, and we're going to heat shrink these hose clamps up front as well. I don't know if you guys can see this little hole right here on this bracket, but that is for your hose clamp to feed through there and come out this other side and to hold the hose clamp to the Resi. Once you guys have your hose clamps all nice and tight on the Resi mount, you'll notice that the adjuster turns in towards the truck a little bit, so you can kind of see it there. Don't sit there trying to fight it to get this thing straight. It's turned away so that when your tire rotates inward like this, it's not hitting on this. But as you guys can see, everything is in there and looks really good. Adjuster is so easy to get to, which is what we want. Quick adjustments for or on a trail. And then we'll throw the lower back in and the knuckle, and this side will be buttoned up once we tighten up these top bolts. These lower knuckle bolts can be a pain. Just make sure you get this thing as lined up as you possibly can. And if it doesn't go in first time, just keep trying, keep trying, keep trying, keep trying. Eventually they will bite. Passenger side is all in. Everything is tight and torqued. We're gonna run through everything one more time before we paint pen it to make sure everything is good. If you guys are installing any aftermarket suspension, whether it's ours or anyone else's, make sure you schedule an alignment if you're doing this at home on your own for same day, or best case scenario, if you don't have to drive that day, install one day, alignment the next day. We're going to repeat the process we did on the passenger side to the driver's side, put this thing on the ground, throw it on the alignment rack. So Tony is putting the wheels and tires back on this truck so we can put this thing on the ground and see where the ride height sits. Since this truck was lifted before this install, we took two different measurements, one from the center of the hub to the bottom of the fender, which was 24.75 inches, and another measurement from the top of the tire to the bottom of the fender, which was 6 inches. Ooh, that's fucking rowdy. Yeah, I was rowdy. But this owner wants it a little bit taller in the front because he felt like the Dobinsons didn't give him the lift that he really wanted. So we might have to adjust them one time, and if we do, we'll show you how to do the collars. It's super easy to do, but once everything's on the ground, you guys will need an alignment no matter what. So make sure you have the alignment scheduled for same day or next day, or bring it to a shop like True Automotive and they'll do it all in one day for you. So this install went perfectly. Customer got exactly what they wanted. We gained about a 3/4 inch height up front, which sits this truck slightly raked forward, which is perfect for what this truck is going to be used for, daily driving and hitting trails in Colorado. That's the install process of the OEM Locked Off Road replacement suspension. Pretty straightforward. You guys can do this at home, but if you don't feel comfortable, you can take it to a shop. Any shop's going to be able to really do this install as long as they're thorough, making sure everything's torqued and nice and tight and to your liking. That's the video. Hope you guys liked it. Hope it answered any questions you may have had. We hope to see our shocks on your truck soon. Tag us in anything that you guys post. We love to share our customers' builds throughout our social media. Later.